Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Matt and I'm back, and it is the end of 2024. And so I figured I would take this opportunity to do kind of a wrap up of the year, show everything that I've been working on, and I've got a lot of new subscribers, which I'm very grateful for. But a lot of you maybe haven't seen much of this layout before and might want to see what I'm doing in this room and what are my concepts for the railroad and what are my plans for the future and that kind of thing. So we're going to go ahead and do a tour of the layout room, and I will show you everything that I've got going on. Let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, we'll start the tour from this side of the room, and I want to apologize really quick. This is much dirtier than I usually like it to be, but I am building bench work for a new model railroad, so you'll have to forgive me there. But anyway, the room itself is 22 feet long and then 14 feet wide at its widest point in that back corner. It kind of does a little L-shaped jaunt around here, and then on this side of the wall is 10 feet end to end. But the room itself was a major reason why we even bought this house. This actually was twice the size as it is now. I went back another probably 15-20 feet this direction, and I built the wall that kind of separates the two rooms. That back room was originally supposed to be my wife's art studio, turned into her home office as she started working from home. And then this room in front here became my personal space. I had the opportunity to actually take all that space as well as my own. She offered it up to me when we first moved in, but I didn't want that. I wanted a smaller space in which to build my man cave, if you will, including my model railroad. I didn't want I just didn't want to build a layout that big. I wanted something that was smaller, more manageable, something I could handle myself, something I could build myself. The overall sort of theme for my modeling interests is less is more, meaning less track work, less overall size. And because when you have less, when you work with less, you're able to add more detail, focus more on the scenery and the scenes, and then I think just build something to a level of completion that's a little closer to what I kind of want at the end of the day. I'm also very slow at building my model railroad here. Those who are longtime viewers of the channel will know that I've kind of been working on this for a while, and I haven't gotten as far as a lot of people have. I've got a ton of other hobbies, and that's a big reason for it. And we'll take a look at some of that now, and I'll give you a tour of the layout. So underneath this layout here is some of my hobbies. We have Legos, we have Transformers, and board games. I like to do a lot of solo board gaming. When you come around here, I've got a shrimp tank. This is full of shrimp and snails and algae. It's been very neglected recently, but I started that a couple years ago to keep me kind of company while I worked from home during COVID. I still work from home a couple days a week, so this is my model railroad workbench slash office space, and I've got a little airbrush station here. One cool thing I do have is I got a light that's kind of underneath there, so I give myself some nice lighting. Somebody was asking about my workbench on Facebook, so I wanted to show kind of how I worked it into my layout. It's in this back corner here, kind of out of the way, and I've also made the fascia much thinner in this area here, just to give myself a lot more headroom for my workbench. And I don't mind it being in the layout room at all. I think it works really well here. It's a comfortable place to work. The workbench itself is actually just a folding table. You can see the legs right there, and it works out really well. It's just a big folding table. I used to have one that folded in the middle, so it folded down small, but I got rid of it because that fold in the middle actually gave it a little bit of a hump, which was not what you want when you're modeling stuff. We'll back up, we'll take a look at the room this way. You can see right here, this is my modular model railroad I'm building. This is 26th Street Station. I'm just now getting the bench work down to a place where it's nearly done. but you can see how it kind of looks in the room. The idea is it's on wheels, so I can slide it out from underneath the layout somewhere in the middle of the room here whenever I'm operating or working on it. And then when I'm done with it, I can push it back underneath the layout, and it should store nicely underneath there once I remove all that junk. It'll be great when it gets to operating, because right now I can only really have 2 people operating on my layout, a conductor and an engineer, so not even like 2 separate trains running at the same time. So it really limits the amount of people I can have over. But if I get this up and operating, then I can have 2 people on Meadowland Falls working that layout, and then 2 people working 26th Street Station, and I think it should be a lot of fun. Let's see what else we have. Up here on the ceiling this is a major reason why I don't get much more work done on my layout, especially during the summer months. These are RC FPV airplanes. So I like to build and fly those during the summer months. They are a lot of fun, but they do take me away from the model railroad. All right, enough of that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the layout itself. So over here on this side of the room is what most of you have seen in the last year or so. This is Sandpoint, Idaho. This is specifically Boyer Yard at Sandpoint, Idaho. It's a very loose representation of the real Sandpoint, Idaho. Kind of my freelance version of what that would look like. I focus mostly on the scenery in this area because it is the simplest to model at this point. If I can get scenery looking good here, I know that for the rest of the layout I'll be in pretty good shape. When you first enter in the room here, I've got a swing gate that goes across the door here. And this swing gate works pretty well, actually. I put it in when I first built the layout. It was one of the first things I built, and it has been real sturdy and works really well, mostly because I think I stained and sealed it up, and so that keeps that wood from moving all over the place. But trains can come and go out of staging here. This is mostly for a continuous operation, running trains in circles and that kind of thing, coming out of staging that direction. But as we see over here, one other thing, this front line here will connect up to the layout on this side, but I use it as a lead track for the yard if you're working the north end of Boyer Yard in Sandpoint. So this is Boyer Yard. I've obviously got a lot more work to do here. I've started putting in all the joint bars and everything that goes in here, and I'll need to be ballasting, and then scenery and everything else here. This is Pacific Steel and Recycling. It's kind of like a recycling facility. Cars can come in with recycled materials and leave out of here as well. This is still work in progress, lots of weathering and detail work to be done here. Over here we've got a large swing gate. And this one is a little more troublesome than the other one. And I think mostly because this wall here, I think, kind of moves through the seasons, and it just kind of affects everything here. So it's a little trickier to get everything to align properly. Another thing is the hinge line of the swing gate is on a curve here, so trains coming and going across that curve. If you are going to put in a swing gate, I would highly recommend not to do it on a curve, a straight track only, if you can make that happen. The steam locomotive is here just because it's winter time, it's Christmas time, and that's when I usually run steam on the layout. The layout is powered by Digitrax DCC. I have the new Digitrax. I can't remember what's called, Evolution X or whatever the latest Digitrax system is. That powers the overall layout. I can control my switches in my staging yard from here as well. And then I also have a proto throttle for all the awesome prototypical switching action. Swing back around over here. From an operation standpoint, trains will come out of staging at this point right here and come along the Pend Oreille River here and into Sandpoint to drop off cars, and then the local will pick up those cars sort them, and then head off this direction to industry. This right here used to be Bell. Now I think it's called Riley Creek Lumber, Lumber and Pole. It's a utility pole manufacturer. One thing I've done with my layout is I've tried to make my sidings as long as possible. So even though this particular industry might only ever take 1 or 2 cars at the most, there's room on here for 3 cars. And that's just to kind of spread things out, give everything a little bit of breathing room so that none of my industries or anything really feel cramped or crowded together. I think that's important. I really kind of want to take a small layout and stretch it into the space of a larger layout. And by giving a little more breathing room on these sidings for this kind of thing is the way to make that happen. All right, coming along here, you can see in areas where I haven't started any scenery yet, I've just printed out some pictures of the kind of thing that will eventually show up in this section, just so operators have an idea of what they're looking at. So we can see the Union Pacific bridge over the Pend Oreille River here, and then this is the Pova Bridge over the Priest River, which is tees right into the Pend Oreille River. But I thought this bridge was a pretty good representation of what could fit in the scene well, so that's going to go there eventually. This right here is a team track for a couple of industries that are real life industries in the area that I'm modeling near Priest River. There is a like a landscaping materials supplier. They supply wood bark, so they can get wood chip hoppers coming in here, as well as an explosives manufacturer that will occasionally get materials for creating explosives on this team track, which is kind of interesting. And so this was a new addition. I decided I wanted another spot for a little more industry, just to kind of change things up a little bit. But I didn't want anything that was going to crowd in this area here and take up the space and for what I want to do with scenery and stuff. And so a team track, I think, really does a good job of handling that. Right over here, there will be a road crossing. I haven't put that in yet, obviously, but I'm looking forward to doing that soon. I was going to actually do that this winter, and then I kind of got on the 26th Street station kick, and so I haven't done that yet, but everything's purchased and ready to go for me to put that in. There's going to be a large sort of rise to a mountain right here, and a tunnel. This is Blue Slide Tunnel, which exists on the real Pend Oreille Valley Road. You can see it's kind of got an interesting wood portal on one end and a concrete portal on the other. And so that's going to go in this area here. This is Lehigh Cement. This is all these structures kind of stand in at this point. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to make this look. I've got a number of kits purchased for building my own sort of kit bash version of a modern cement facility. But the inside track are for 2-bay hoppers, loading those up with cement, and the outside track is for those what do they call them, pressure differentials, hoppers. These Atlas kit models are really nice looking, so that's how that works. Take a step back here, you can see this dip right here. This is going to be an embankment that dips down to the Pend Oreille River, so it's going to be a nice little scene with some trees and all sorts of stuff, just to give it a little more of a natural, just a nice little scene right here, so that when you're standing in this portion of the layout room, you got something kind of nice to look at here, and takes away a little bit from the sharpness of this curve by having nice scenery around it. This is Pend Oreille newsprint. This is based on the real location. You can see in this photograph right here. Very interesting industry located in Usk, Washington. So we got tracks for loading newsprint paper. This is for recycled newsprint, and then any sort of chemicals, kaolin, and that kind of stuff here. Chlorine will go on that track. We got a couple of runaround tracks here. This right here is sort of a off-spot track for anything that comes into Usk that there's no space for. And here's another example of trying to get sidings as long as possible so that you can get industry as big as possible, but as nothing feels cramped or squeezed into a space. So whereas this is Vegan Brothers Lumber, which is another real world location that I've decided to model. It's not real served in real life, but it is here. But these loads are actually from a guy on Facebook named Columbus Trainmaster. He does these sort of paper loads here. These are really nice. I was actually really lucky to get this. This is Idaho Forest Group, and this logo was only used for a 1 or 2 year period before they switched to a different version of the logo. So it's awesome that I was able to get that specific look for these loads here. They look really good. He also created these individual wrapped piles of lumber here as well. Sometimes people ask what these little locks are for, and these are actually, obviously they don't do anything, they just kind of hang off the layout, but they work as the locks that would lock out a turnout from the main line in real life. And so an operator, if they are approaching a turnout that needs to be flipped, they can always do it by hand here if they want, but if they want a little more realism, they're given a key at the beginning of the operation session, and they can unlock this lock here to simulate unlocking the switch, and then they can throw the switch, and then when they are done working that spur, they can go ahead and lock it back up again, and that's how that works. Not everyone chooses to do that, but it adds just a little bit of additional fun in operations should they want it. And then this right here, this panel turns on and off power to my staging yard, just so that I don't have locomotives kind of idling during an operating session for 2 hours doing nothing. It gets a little dark in this side of the room. I am planning on putting an additional light right up here to help sort of brighten that up a little bit. This back in here is going to be the Box Canyon Bridge, which you can see right here. It's going to be probably the last model I create on the layout, and that's certainly going to be a project for down the line, but it has this kind of really complex, cool looking bridge here, and then there's a hydroelectric dam right below it. Lots of mountainous scenery. That's going to go in right there eventually. And then we are back to the beginning of the layout again, and you can see where the swing gate kind of swings over and the track back there. So when I'm working USC, this track along here now becomes the lead track for all the USC area. So that is the main layout. Let's talk a little bit about staging. So the entrance to staging is that hole right there, and if I go over here, there is a hole right over there that leads into staging, and the staging tracks are behind this layout right here, this phase right here. You can see it sort of steps out about a foot from the back of the wall there. There's a 3-track staging yard that exists back in there. You can see I've got these mirrors so I can see the yard ladder getting back into staging. Access to the yard ladder to the switches they're accessed from behind these panels. These panels are on magnets, like cabinetry magnets, and so I can just kind of pull it off of the back there and reach in and reach my yard ladder on either end. This one's a little trickier to get to just because the bridge is in the way, but I can get to it pretty easy that way. The staging itself is mostly accessed. You can get to it back in that corner back in there, but most of it's accessed inside of this closet. So let's head in the closet and take a look at what we can see back in there. And this is my closet space right here. It's a very small closet, very tight in here. You can see all of my cars, and I don't like to keep anything in the box. I'm not a collector just to collect. So if I've got a train car, it's on the layout. Either it's in my staging, or it's on the layout proper, or it's in drawers that I keep for cars that will eventually work their way through and onto the layout via operation sessions. So I don't have a whole lot of extra cars. Down here we can see some scenery materials and electronics and junk. And way back in there, more electronics and stuff, but way back in there is, I'm not going to be able to get to it, but there's a ton of model kits that a lot of them I forgot I purchased, so I need to start building those for sure. Tons of Florist foam here. This is stuff I used to create my mountains. Back in here, this is those natural fiber furnace filters for trees. And if we swing back around here, we can see my staging tracks. I've got this little curtain here to hide them a little bit from the front side, but we can see one track right now is taken up by the Union Pacific Manifest. This inside track here is for my Sandpoint turn locomotives. I've got this middle track. I've got a auto rack train on this middle track here. It's kind of sitting down on that far side of the yard there. I've opened up, I'm using cardboard to kind of hide it right now because my cats like to get into staging and knock everything down. So I put the cardboard in place to keep the cats from getting back in there. There's another one right there I won't be able to get to at the moment, but I can reach in here and re-rail anything that needs re-railed. You can see the auto racks for my auto rack train right there. But about 80% of the layout, the staging can be accessed from within here. And it's fairly easy to get to. Of course, there's about 20% that's really kind of difficult to get to back in there. And of course, that's where trains always derail. The one thing I don't regret it because I don't know that there's any other way I could have done it. But the staging yard is, I wish it was out in the open. There's a question right now in Second Section podcast, hidden or open staging. I am very much a proponent of open staging. If you can put it in maybe another room, or if you can get it under the layout, I would definitely suggest that. Because this is a little bit of a pain in the butt. And when I say a little bit of a pain in the butt, I mean a bit of a pain in the butt. But it works. It works for op sessions really good. It works for storing cars really nicely. The only thing about it is if I want to swap out cars for an operation session, I have to pull everything out onto the layout, take the cars off, put the new cars on based on what the computer tells me to do, and then push everything back into staging only to bring it back out again. So it's kind of a pain in the butt that way. Like I said, it works. It does its job. Had I to do it again, I would have done the same thing because of the limitations of the space. There's no way for me to put like a second deck on here at all, just for staging. I mean, potentially I could have built a helix that sort of like went around into the closet and utilized that space and down to staging below the layout. But that would have encroached more on the room. It would have made this a far more complex layout. And I was very much for simplicity for this design. So I think that staging works as well as it can. There's always something about a model railroad that everyone doesn't like. And that particular bit is the only thing really that I do not care for on my layout. Well, that's it for today's video. Thank you everyone for coming by and checking it out. And yeah, hopefully you saw something cool or something that you liked. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer whatever I can. 2024 has been a semi-successful year. I don't know. I could have done better. I think I'm a little disappointed in how far I didn't get this year. But 2025, I think 2025 is going to have some fun stuff planned for it. So thank you everyone for checking out this video, and I will see you all in 2025.